With that, we will jump in. And if you will, buddy, just kind of give us an overview of just you and your background just a little bit, just to warm us up.
Okay. All right. So, Buddy Bockweg, I'm CEO of Vsimple, co-founder. I have 3 other founders that came alongside me. Professionally, I started 20 years ago, roughly, in the distribution space. So my stepfather was a founder of a business. I had failed out of the University of Kentucky, not very gracefully. And so I had.
If you're gonna fail big. Right?
That was it's kind of my whole mantra of my sophomore year of college.
But did you have a good time?
Oh, I mean, it was pretty phenomenal. Absolutely. I was in mechanical engineering at the time. This goes back to, a lesson that you learn as you grow a little older. Do the things that you're most passionate about. I had no passion for engineering other than the fact that I had an uncle, actually 2 uncles that were in engineers, and I thought, I can be an engineer. I like math. They make good money. Like, why wouldn't I do that? And then I got to college and realized that it requires a tremendous amount of work and knowledge that I don't have. Like, I just don't have the ability to work through what they work through, and they weeded me out in the matter of about, 2 semesters, and then 2 semesters of not physically attending. So when I left the University of Kentucky and came back, my stepfather gave me an opportunity, and he said, "Hey, I'll help you pay for school if you will continue to, go to college, get a degree, and maintain a good GPA." So. But at the same time, he's like, "I just started this business. I'd love to have you, jump in and help us out." And it was warehouse work. I was literally working in a warehouse. That was supposed to be part-time. It ended up being full-time. So full-time school, full-time. And wow. I found finance and business school and fell in love. So the GPA was no longer a problem. And then the distribution experience, it was a small business, but we got to do work with gigantic organizations. So one of their first customers was KFC, and this was before Tricon, so it was just KFC, and KFC at the time was expanding to KFC, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut. Texas Roadhouse had just started to develop, and we were in the lighting space, so we were doing lighting for these organizations. So I got to jump into this company and really experience what working with big corporate America felt like. Mm-hmm. And of course, as I found finance, I thought, this is part-time work. I'm going to go sit for my series, and I want to go to New York. I want to trade. That's what I want to do. Like, that's what I was passionate about at the time. And my stepfather said, "Hey, just basically, give me a year. You're no longer in the warehouse. You're now in the office. There's only 5 of us maybe at the time. Mm-hmm. And just give us a year. You got to study for it anyway, so work here for a year." Right. And so I did. Yeah, so I gave it a year and fell in love with kind of this small business, trying to take over the world. This is wow. And we're dealing with these huge organizations, and they're relying upon us and our expertise, and we're helping them with design and the distribution, and we were successful, which was amazing, and to be such a young company, to be as successful as we were. My stepfather ended up, unfortunately, having skin cancer that metastasized to his brain. Mm-hmm. And so when that happened, we had to make a decision. The people, he had co-founders, they came to us as employees and said, "Hey, we really have 2 options." My stepfather was really he was the foundation of the business. We either shut this thing down, we just call it a loss, and we all go our separate ways, or let's see if we can't really give this thing a shot. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I jumped in a big way, and I'm 23.
Yeah, how old are you at this point?
23, 24 years old.
Okay, yeah, young.
I wasn't old enough to rent a car, traveling the country, dealing with these organizations, and this was before Uber. I'll tell you how old I am. So literally, I'm trying to figure out how to. You have to be 25. I'm 24.
And what role are you holding with the company at this point?
A little of everything. So my stepfather was the salesperson. He was the relationship mm-hmm. owner to all these organizations, and he had the industry knowledge. So I got to work with him just enough to pass a little bit of that along, and then the rest of it was just sheer grunt work. It was like, I've got to figure this out.
Yeah.
And then, we had a couple other people in the organization, and we just said, let's go do. Was a part of that for about 5 years before I led the entire organization, and did that for about 10 years-ish.
So before you got to that point, the biggest nut, one of the biggest nuts that we hear from startups all the time is, how do I gain those very established, and in this case, some of the most iconic Fortune 500 companies were some of your early customers, right?
Correct.
How does a startup gain those types of customers, right? How did you go after that business? How did you all close that type of business? Because that's difficult. That is quite hard. So how were you successful at that?
Relationships. There was not a secret sauce. We didn't do anything much differently than everybody else. We were passionate about taking care of people. My stepfather was fantastic at it, to the point where when he passed away, so part of KFC, they have an association. It's called AKFCA. I forgot the entire acronym, but it's basically the Global Association for Kentucky Fried Chicken. Every year they have a conference, and at that conference they have a golf scramble, a golf tournament. And they named the golf tournament of Global KFC after my stepfather.
Oh my gosh.
As a vendor. He's a supplier to the system, and they named the golf tournament after him.
Wow.
And that's just because he cared. Like, he literally bent over backwards for everybody he came in contact with. He was a bulldog. Like, he just wouldn't take no for an answer, and he was just one of those guys that he made an impression.
Right.
And 90% of the time it was positive. The 10% that it wasn't, there was a reason. So, but I got to see that, right? I got to see that firsthand and in action, and that was instrumental for me at such a young age to see the power of connection, right? The power of relationships. In these big organizations, they're relying upon this one guy to manage a program that's essential to their success as a company.
What was the most innovative project you all worked on with these large corporates? Any one of those stand out to you?
We did some really cool work with 21C. 21C Museum Hotels.
Because you all worked with Chick-fil-A, Yum Brands, Chase, Texas Roadhouse.
It was
Humana. It's big.
Huge. These huge organizations. We got to. That was part of the fun of being in that business. Was that it was tangible. So what you provided, the design into the product, into the project, you could walk in and see the finished result. So you were able to walk through the space and we were like, wow, like we created this together. Like this is amazing. We did a big project for JP Chase. It was downtown Manhattan. That was a really cool project. We did some really unique things with Chick-fil-A and some of their kind of their more progressive locations that they were trying to figure out, different service levels, and we were part of that whole. Everybody sees the double drive-throughs now, the double drive-through expansions, and they were adding on.
And you never think you're going to get through fast. Man, they are out there, got that order, and you are through. I can't
say enough amazing things about that organization. I got to be in their offices. I got to meet the Cathy family, and they are true to who they are. Everyone that you interact with, from the time that you physically step on campus, all the way through, it is really unbelievable. You talk about culture, they eat, sleep, and breathe it, and it's not just in the store. Like, it's at every level and everyone you interact with, which is just amazing.
So now, fast forward us.
Yes.
Talk to us about how it is you become CEO of the company. Point, right?
So
this is AccuServe, right?
This is AccuServe, Okay. So I progressed. As we grew, it was, somebody needed to really take charge. We had a gentleman that was day in and day out. He was my senior. He was an owner in the business. I was not. And he was 30 years ahead of me from a, years on the planet perspective. So he wanted to be involved and engaged, and he was 1 and I was 1A, and we kind of went out and took over the world together. And so he was an amazing mentor of mine.
Nice.
And a wonderful friend. And it was a tough period at the end because I wanted ownership of the business. Like my whole goal was, if I wasn't going to own it, I wanted to go out and build it, right? Because that was just who I was. I wasn't in it just to be an employee. I wanted to physically take this and make it what I had a vision for, and we just couldn't come to terms on that. And we tried for 5, 6, 7 years, and it just finally came to a head.
Okay.
And it was obvious on his side and my side. I look back on it, and it's with those things that there's a lot of ego and pride on my side involved, and definitely on his side involved, and we just couldn't get there.
Yeah.
So finally it was like, okay, I see the writing on the wall. It's time for me to go.
Okay. And at this point, you've now been with AccuServe almost 20 years.
Yeah, it's
right?
like
Long
18
time.
plus. Yeah.
You've really seen it grow.
Yeah,
quite a bit over
when you
time.
have a hand in building the whole thing,
Sure.
Walking away from it
That's
was
tough.
the toughest thing I've ever done professionally.
Yeah.
But when you walk away, and it was at a point where it was like, okay, like we're not getting anywhere, and actually this, bad relationship is now starting to impact the organization. One of us has to go, and you own the business, so
Yes, it's me.
it's pretty obvious who's going to go. So I stepped away, and when I stepped away, I can remember. So it was months of conversation with my wife, like, "Hey, hon, I mean, if this comes to a head, like we've got to." I want to make sure that I'm not making a rash decision, right? I want to be thoughtful about this process, and you say you're uncomfortable with all of this, then I've got to figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah.
And my wife, her name's Taylor, and she is just tremendous. Like, she's the reason I'm sitting here.
Nice.
It's it's pretty wild.
Very nice.
But that support allowed me the opportunity to jump out.
Yeah. And then did you know at that point, like, okay, I've gotten a taste of really getting to build something. I like that. I'm going to start with nothing and build something. What happened then?
Yes. I mean, it was, all right, I'm out. I had a 1-year non-compete, non-solicit. So I called a good friend of mine. His name is John Neese. And John, I said, hey, I just left my job. And he was like, yeah, because what we were trying to do at the time was all right, if we can't agree, then I'll just buy the business. I didn't have the capital to buy the business. John I had gotten to know over the course of many years because of his daughter is best friends with my wife. I got to become best friends with her husband, they're both invested in our business, which is just a crazy cycle. But it was, hey, didn't buy the business. Actually, I quit. I don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
And John said, great, come on over here. He's like, basically he said, take a week, take a breath. And he said, how about you just come over here with me and then we'll figure it out. And so he did. Like he believed in me enough from knowing me to give me an opportunity to sit with him and Shane Udick and consult alongside of his businesses, which was just a phenomenal opportunity to really, I'd been in one business pretty much my entire professional life. So to be able to see, especially when you go into like the beer business, I was consulting with Fall City and Old 502 Winery, and it becomes like this, wow, it's like such a different world. Like, this is amazing to get that feel. But it really gave me more zeal. It was like, hold on a second. Like, yes, they're very different, but business is business. Like, we're talking, it's about people. Yes, it's about a P&L, but at the end of the day, the beer business is similar to what we're trying to accomplish, right? What do you do over a beer? You connect.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we want to do as an organization. I knew we could build something that could connect people better.
Right.
And the way that business has been done, primarily in the space that we're targeting in Vsimple, is, there is no connection.
So talk to us about the idea for Vsimple. What was the initial big problem that you were ready to go out and tackle?
Yeah, so I jump out, I consult for a year. I start identifying people that one of the things is, I don't know if it's an age thing or it's a wisdom thing. It came with me with age, is clearly defining my weaknesses. The things that I was really good at and the things that I'm terrible at or just have no interest in. And I started identifying, okay, if I'm great at culture and if I'm great at vision and I want to be able to build something and get people rallied and fired up about a cause and what it is that we're trying to accomplish, I can't be sitting in front of the computer looking at spreadsheets all day, right? I can't, there's things that, I need support to be able to do that.
Right.
And so I started identifying people in our community based on networking and friendships that were like, hey, Gary Chrysilis, who's a co-founder, he was at Waystar. Zermatt had just become Waystar here locally. He was over there. He had just moved into the finance part of the business. He had been there previously. But he'd also done sales ops and all kinds of stuff. He's just an amazing mind. And we had connected on a faith-based level early on prior to this, and he was the first person I poked and was like, hey, would you be interested in coming alongside? And he's like, what are we building? I'm like, I don't know. We're figure it out as we go,
build
right?
The team first.
Yeah, well, we're going to do something amazing, I promise you. And sure enough, he was like, yeah, I'd love to. Let's figure this out. And then it was a gentleman that I worked with at my old business. His name's Elia Tatua, and he, worked with me probably for 3 or 4 years at the old business in AccuServe. And then I left, and he was like, "Hold on a second, came to work with you. How did this?" I'm like, "Sorry, man." But he decided to jump as well.
Okay.
And he was like. He had the same thing. He had a year, and it was like, all right, well, let's figure this out. So he actually consulted alongside me with some of the stuff that we were doing for John. And then Henry Lynch, who's our VP of product at Vsimple, he earned his stripes to come in as a co-founder. He was young and aggressive and, was pulling together, market research and writing papers and, showing us all right, we're thinking about supply chain and we want to be in the distribution business, but we want to be a tech-first distribution company.
Okay.
And so that's where the idea.
So now it's starting to form.
You got it.
Right. Okay. So tell us, you're thinking about the type of business that you want to create. At what point were you thinking about the market opportunity, the problem that your eventual solution's going to solve for?
Yeah. So we started thinking about the industry, right? It was like, okay, what are the issues that the industry has? And when we start looking at industry, we're talking about distribution and manufacturing, just because that's the world that I grew up in.
Yep.
So I had an immense amount of contacts and relationships already pre-baked into that. So we were like, all right, well, if we're going to target anything, let's target where we know. And we started identifying okay, the distribution space, and this is prior to the pandemic. So the supply chain wasn't a big deal at that point. It was still the supply chain, the boring old supply chain, not the, can't turn on the news without hearing about supply chain. So we all
know what supply chain is now. We're experts.
That's what we said Amazon did for distribution, right? Distribution before Amazon was a dirty word. You were a middleman. Amazon came along and it was like, oh, you're in distribution? You're like, how did this change? Yeah, thank you, Amazon. So we ended up, this identifying, okay, if we're going to do distribution, we're going to build supply chains for organizations, we're going to do it with technology. The old way is you just kind of worked it in. It was, build the relationship, and then the back of house was just figure it out. Inventory and trying to figure out, writing POs and communicating via email and all these things. And as we started identifying the tech first, we launched the business, Access Point Alliance, I'll never forget it, March 17th, so St. Patrick's Day. We were like, hey, luck of the Irish. My birthday's on the 18th. So I'm like, this is going to be perfect. It's going to be great.
2020, it's going to be great.
100%. And then we get a call the morning of that says, hey, the whole press thing that was supposed to happen, they were all supposed to show up, and they were like, yeah, we've been put on restrictions, and we can no longer, show up at events. And so it was a complete shutdown on the day of our lunch. Right. We're like, awesome. Okay. We're like, is this a sign? Should we pack our bags now? Or so anyway, March 17th was, so we had built a technology. So we had a CTO. Brian Herbert was the original co-founder. What a phenomenal, we wouldn't be in this position without Brian. Brian came along, and we had a CTO as a distribution business, which is unheard of, right? Like, you don't build technology to be in the distribution space, you just move stuff.
Right.
But when we started launching our technology, our customer, we were able to go from zero to a couple $1 million in revenue in, 6 to 9 months. And it was an amazing jump out of the gate, and we were like, wow, we really have something here.
Yeah.
But then we started doing some soul searching and some digging, and that's why the co-founding unit, the solopreneur thing, I can't imagine, because our greatest ideas have come from us just banging our heads together and sitting in a conference room. I'll never forget. It was the summer. We're in the conference room into summer. It's hot. We're in the middle of a warehouse, and we were like, you know what? We can build a big distribution business. Our technology is standing out. We were getting rave reviews from our technology, and to the point where they were asking to buy the tech without the distribution. So we were like, all right, well, we've got something here from a tech perspective.
Right.
We always knew we wanted to be a tech business. We just didn't know exactly how it was going to play out, right? Yeah. We didn't know the path. And so we started really honing in on this, like, okay, we can build a big distribution business, but if our charge, specifically my charge, is to ensure that we're maximizing returns for the investors that have come alongside, and we're going to deploy that capital in things like inventory and warehouse space and forklifts, the return on that capital isn't that great. So if you looked at it, we started doing exercise. I was like, all right, $100 million distribution business with a fixed margin on average of somewhere between 12 and 15%, that nets down to 2 or 3 points by the time it's all said and done, or a $10 million tech business. And you're like, okay, well, $10 million, let's see, we only need, whatever, call it 100 customers, a couple hundred customers. Over here, we need thousands of customers,
right.
Gigantic infrastructure.
Yep.
And so we started looking at it going, okay, this is an EBITDA equation, this is a revenue equation. And I had the great fortune of, Henry Lynch came from Waystar, Gary Chrysilis came from Waystar, Brian Herbert had been a part of a B2B SaaS business prior to coming alongside of us. Yep. So we had that B2B SaaS experience that they started going, hold on, whoa. We're going to do all this work, put all this energy in at the end of the day to walk away with not a whole lot.
Right.
Specifically for our investors, because when we decided to build this business, the co-founding unit, we said, hey, we're either going to build a lifestyle business or we're going to go for a moonshot. And we started looking at, the team that we formed, and it was like, hold on a second. We are all very employable people. Like, we can go get a job. Why wouldn't we go for the moon? Why wouldn't we want to take this as far as it physically can go and figure out how to build something of enormous value instead of a nice lifestyle business? And that was really the catalyst on that summer day. Was like,
that was not only pivotal, but there was a pivot that
100%.
happened at this point, right?
Yeah, so Access Point Alliance, we wrapped up some projects come the beginning of 2021, and Vsimple was born into the world really, end of the first quarter of 2021.
Right.
So we had this, because we had toyed around with doing it under Access Point Alliance, but then it was like, well, how confusing is that? Like, oh, you're a distribution business, you're a technology business. What are you? And it's like,
right.
Which we were funny because we had built the foundation for our platform. We called it Access Links, and Access Links is still the nomenclature that's in our system. So to the world, it's Vsimple. When you look internally to us, it says Access Links in it because that's what we built it on.
Right.
So we were like, all right, like here's the opportunity. Now's the time.
Yep.
If we go, let's go all in. Like we can't do both. So we did.
Awesome. Now you talk about an interesting phrase, from quote to cash to customer experience, right? So tell us a little bit about how that recipe, if you will, factors into the trajectory of the growth that you experienced at this point, when you recognize for your shareholders, for your customers, the value was in the tech, and so that's where we're going to go all in. But you came back to your roots, right?
We did.
From quote to customer to the experience. That's the path you're going to take.
We started looking at the business, and we started originally when we built the technology. We noticed a gap, right? So the B2C market, people have become accustomed to easy access to information and immediate access to information, right? It's this like, hey, like I ordered something on Amazon, boop, here's your confirmation, boop, here it's shipped, boop, here it's at your door. You know, we called it the Domino's Pizza effect. Like when Domino's Pizza was now, you could like, it's in the car, and here's Randy like dropping it off and waving on a picture, and you're like, and then we were writing multi-million-dollar purchase orders to suppliers and not having a clue what was going on for days and weeks and months, and having a hard time gathering information and getting in touch with people at the factory or the distribution company. And so you start digging into that. And I had the great pleasure of sitting in these seats and understanding the issues. It's not that they don't want to provide you the information. They don't have the means to provide you the information. And the reason, the large majority of the reasons, are the fact that they're so inefficient in the operations that they just don't have the time to be able to sit and proactively approach their customers. So we went, well, let's do that for them, right? So when Vsimple was originally born in 2021, we launched it as a customer experience platform, where now you can create these experiences for your customer that we know you want to create, you just don't have a way to do it. The issue that we ran into immediately was, hey, that's great. Like, we want to take care of our customers, but we're kind of a mess. Like, we want to create that experience, but we need help before we can create that experience.
Right.
So we started looking at, all right, well, what we built is really to help you. Right? So the technology is driven around ensuring that your discovery or quote to cash is optimized, that everyone in your organization operationally is working as efficiently and productively as possible. And we're removing the things that create these monotonous tasks, the onslaught of email. And you find in these organizations, you know, where there's not one organization that we've met with, and there's been hundreds that we've talked to, that haven't, you know, hey, I'm inundated. But look, let me show you how I've organized my inbox to manage my workflows. And you're like, hold on a second. And then you've managed your share drives to mimic the inbox. And then you've got spreadsheets to manage the work that's actually going on to report against. So you start going, hold on a second. Like, you're looking at duplicative work everywhere. And then you're just managing your inbox, which is challenging enough for most people. And we were like, there is an absolute better way. And what the catalyst was is we started looking at the investments over many decades for these companies. And the investments have been in what they do, not how they do it. So, hey, I make something for it. I'm going to invest in new machines to make it faster, better, variants of whatever I make. I am, committed to what I do. The how we do it is literally hey, we just figure it out. And it's not their fault, right? It's not like they said, oh, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to create really inefficient operations and just, forget about it. The advent of the pandemic, unfortunately, has forced organizations to take a look internally, which is like, hold on a second. Like, when people are plentiful and affordable, a great way to grow your business is just hire more people. Invest in what you do, hire more people to do the work between discovery and cash. Hey, it's worked for decades.
Right.
It's no longer the way. And a couple things have happened. You had the Great Resignation,
Right.
which has drastically impacted manufacturing and distribution. You've had the inability to hire, right? Trying to find people that want to come into your space, because most of these organizations still struggle with remote work because they're passing paper around an office, because they're not established or set up to be able to move work around, because there is no place. It's all individual businesses within a big business.
Yeah.
And then an aging workforce. So how do I attract the under 30 crowd to come into this space and ensure that we have long-term success, not just short-term success? So these catalysts are really forcing organizations now to take a look at the operational space and look at it much differently than they ever have. When we started this business, I mean, I've talked to, I don't know, just call it 100, looking for money, right? Going out for investment. And most of the people were like, whoa, you're going to sell technology to manufacturing and distribution? We were like, yes, we are. And they're like, no, you're not. Like, I get you want to, but they don't adopt. Like, they just, it's not what they do. Like, they're okay doing the way that they've done it. And we said, yeah, but we understand, over the course of 2 decades, yes, in 2000 to 2010, 2010 to 2020, okay, yes. But now you have these significant issues that you're dealing with in your business, specifically if you're in a fixed margin business. So the people that you do find that want to come work are commanding 30 to 40% more per person. Well, if you're a fixed margin, and that's not a part of, you can't pass that cost along.
Right. And just adding more people to grow is just going to compound the problem.
100%. Yeah. So we've positioned ourselves in the world for organizations to be able to really invest in not just a place with Vsimple, a group of people that are passionate about ensuring company success and ensuring the person's success.
Right.
So
what's that secret sauce? Like when you get in there, like here's the value proposition and why we're different. What is it?
How many people watch this?
I'm gonna get
tell my secrets. Our secret sauce is we care. Our heart. You know what? It sounds crazy.
Not as in you don't, but
no.
That's what you boil it down
that
to.
When we approach somebody, right, new opportunities, it's not a sale. Like it's not a transaction.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of a relationship. So it's like, hey, let us sit with you and understand your pains, right? Our solution, the way we've built our technology is like Lego. So we can configure our technology to meet your business needs. We want to hear about what that feels like for you so that when we provide you the customized instance specifically for you and your organization, that it drastically changes your professional life immediately. And we realized quickly that there's a lot of tools in technology, but there's not a lot of places, meaning like, all right, so specifically the operational space is a perfect example of that. You start looking at the landscape of operations, and what you find is Microsoft Office is still the predominant operating platform.
Yeah.
Right? It's email combined with shared drives, as well as Excel spreadsheets are still the dominant form of managing the operations of a business. That technology was built in the 80s. So hold on a second. There hasn't been an advancement? Well, there's been advancements. The problem is that they're just tools. There's nobody that's sitting with these organizations, right? So when you invest in an ERP, it's a gigantic investment. And it's one that most organizations loathe, but it's a necessity, right? We saw the loathing part, and we were like, well, we can fix that. The necessity part is what we're going after.
Okay.
how do we build a place where it's a necessity now? Because business is adopting the operational platform as a strategic benefit and a competitive advantage to their organization, all of a sudden now you're starting to see this, hold on a second, well, they're doing it, well, we need to be doing it.
Right, okay.
Right? It's the CRM 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody had
So
CRMs.
you're dealing with very traditional manufacturing firms. You said yourself, like,
Yes,
these
ma'am.
are companies really slow to change and adopt any new technologies.
Yeah.
But the pain is strong enough now with, as we've seen, resignations and people retiring out of the workforce and
Yeah.
just not being able to attract the talent that they require, that they're ready to listen. They're ready to sit down with you as a
They're ready
partner
to
because you care.
They're ready to
Right?
start listening.
And
What they
just
don't
say,
want to be
we're
is
obviously we have to do something.
Correct.
So
Yes.
let's do it with you.
and our go-to-market strategy. What we do differently than most is that we build the relationship. We actually provide something of value prior to contract. So when we sit with organizations, we listen to their workflows. We provide them back an optimized SOP, so standard operating procedures, that says, here is your work completely optimized. If you never sign a contract with us, at least you now know
Right.
you can remove 40% of these steps, but just by doing this, this, and this differently.
Okay.
And we do that because it's like,
Right.
hey, we want to make sure that you understand that we care about your success.
Yep.
And your success, when you are successful, you are ensuring our success.
Right.
So our job is to sit here with you,
Right.
not just until we have contract, but we physically go to the nth degree, meaning we sit with you prior to contract. Once contract is signed and executed, we actually do the implementation. We, meaning us as a group. We do the training of your people,
Yeah.
and then we provide you a customer experience manager for as long as you make an investment in Vsimple.
So you're literally putting proof of concept. Here is the future of what your company can look like and what you can realize. And because I can prove this to you,
Yeah.
you got buy-in and you move them
100%.
along your process. Okay.
Yep.
So a question we love to ask, especially companies that are early stage but on this type of a growth trajectory, is about talk to us a bit about your specific strategies around, we're going to scale this business and
Yeah.
we're going to scale it fast.
Yes.
Right? So talk about that.
So that is the
Moving
question.
into that scale phase as fast
As
as
soon
you all
as
did.
we say we're a technology company that builds relationships, we get how do you scale that? What does that look like? And it's like, so the way we position ourselves in the market, because of the price per person, right, the expense to the organization, it's not inexpensive, the investment in Vsimple.
Sure.
And we take that extremely seriously. It's like this is something, you look at $50,000 in an annual contract value perspective is one employee, right? If we can't provide just as much value, if not more value, and what we're seeing from a lot of the data that's coming out of this first year is that we actually provide more like 5 to 7 people as far as value goes. So that's a major investment for these organizations.
Yeah, sure.
So we're not targeting tens of thousands of customers, right? Our goal is to have hundreds and thousands of customers that are all bought in and believe in what we're physically doing, and we can build a enormously valuable business supporting those organizations and their people. So it's not this isn't a Monday.com or Asana where it's like, hey, get them in a free trial and try to convert them at some point.
Yeah.
Like there's no free trials with us. Like we are, so scaling this is how do we put people in the right seats to ensure that we can have meaningful conversations, build the pipeline large enough to be able to, ensure that we go from 100 customers to 1,000 customers, our magic number is 2,000 customers. So, all right, so we have a 7-year plan.
Okay.
So 2,000 customers over the next 7 years.
And where are we now?
We're in year 1.
And we have how many?
Well, well less than 100 like right now. Our goal for this year is 100.
Okay.
So this is the 1 year, 100 year, the 100 for the first year, and then we progress up to 2,000 over the next 6.
Okay.
So we scale that by making sure that we have the right people, making the connections, building the relationships, walking in offices, getting on airplanes. It's not an inexpensive way to go to market.
Right.
But what we're finding is our net retention from the past year, our first customer that we had is just a blessing in itself. We had ProLift Toyota, so the Toyota-owned forklift dealer, and Toyota is just phenomenal from an organization's perspective. But they've been extremely supportive of us, and they gave us a chance. They've gone from a half dozen users to 200 plus users over the course of a year. And every user that comes in is like, this is incredible, this is incredible. So we're just gathering a bunch of good information to be able to push back into the world, which is helping us tell the story. But being able to take that and scale that through the Toyota universe, right? And then, we're into the equipment space. So you've got Komatsu, you've got JCB, you've got all these other manufacturers that we can continue to move it through. Yeah. And our goal is, hey, let's see if we can't build a really valuable business with as few customers as possible.
Okay.
So that we can really take care of them, so we can create the partnerships that are necessary that you just don't get with most tech companies.
Is that risky?
100%.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, some people think we're crazy.
Right.
And I love that. I mean, when people are running to this like, oh, it's got to be a freemium model, or you see everybody moving to PLG, this product-led growth. You got to get it in. They got to try it in the middle, and you move it up and move it down. And you've got not just people, but you've got money that's saying this is the right way to do it. I like to be on this side of the fence, which is like, hey, you go do you. Like, that's fine. Like, let the industry move in that direction. Here's what we want. I want this customer to be a customer for life. I don't want our churn to ever happen unless the business just doesn't make it. Right? We want to build these relationships that really can impact all of us in a really amazing way.
What happens in year 7? What's the exit strategy?
So once you take investment, right, there's really only 2 paths, right? There is the acquisition, you get acquired, or there's an IPO. We see both as an option. We're not limiting ourselves. I don't have enough knowledge on the IPO side to actually have an opinion on that. But I do know that you start looking at the landscape of what we do and where we do it and kind of where we fit within the tech stack.
Yeah.
And once we figure out how to move the market and they adopt this, what we call the future of work tech stack, it's going to be an amazing ride. So it's just this like, all right, like educate the world, build the relationships, be true to ourselves, and then from there, let the chips fall where they may.
And I assume that would be your advice to everybody as well, right? If you were to share,
here's
your pearl of wisdom. Here's what I've learned over this time.
I get asked this now a lot, which is interesting because I'm like, we haven't done anything. Like, we were able to raise some money, which is great. We're building an amazing organization, but we had so much more to do. But it's all about your network. It's all about connectivity. If there's one thing, I had my wife's family, we had a dinner the other night celebrating birthdays for February. And she's got a niece that's in college at the University of Kentucky, and she was just chit-chatting with me. She's like, hey, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do. And I said, she's like, what do you think? And I'm like, build your network. If I would have known that 18 years ago, I would have done this very differently.
I think a lot of us would say that, right?
Yeah.
Just didn't understand the value of it, nor the need for it
100%.
at the time. Yeah.
Like, I'm good. I can do this on my own. Good. It's like, but you can't. Like, you can, but, so you look at, the pearl of wisdom is like, go meet and do. Like, meet as many people as you possibly can. Go be involved and engage. Go do. Go give back. Like, be a part of the community. Don't just be a person in the community. And then, then you have that ability to be able to contact and call through and when you want to do something amazing or you have an idea, you got a network to be able to accomplish that
Yeah.
with.
Cool. And easier to do, I would say, here in Louisville than maybe the coast, from my experience. Yeah.
Could be. Yeah, I'd never, not tried to do it on the coast, but.
Good, don't. Do it right here. Right here.
Yeah.
All right.
We like where we are.
I'm going to roll into some of our fun rapid fire questions.
All right.
You're going to get your questions ready for Buddy, which I know you have some. So you ready?
Go
All right.
for it.
They're easy. iOS or Android?
Oh, iOS, no question.
So, what's your superpower?
Oh. Does it have to be like a real superpower?
No.
Or, okay.
Are you actually?
Yeah, like I'm like, do you want to know what I want my superpower to be, or?
What do you want it to be?
I think leadership. I think it's just it's just kind of who I am.
Okay, cool. Best vacation ever taken?
Oh, that was my wife and I. We went to the Abaco Islands, which is in the Bahamas, and it changed my life. Like it was, yeah,
Awesome.
no question.
Very cool. One thing you can't live without?
Ooh. Unfortunately, I'm trying to live without it, but I can't. Is sugar. Like, I wish I could. I had a grandmother that let me eat whatever I wanted when I was little, and I have an addiction. Like it's weird. So anyway,
The best. All right. Favorite book or podcast?
Ooh. Anything Jim Collins from a book perspective. It goes back to leadership. I just am fascinated by that. Podcast. I've gotten trapped in this All In podcast. I don't know if you guys listen to it. It's for incredibly connected people that just talk about stuff for an hour and a half.
All In. Okay.
All In, yeah.
Cool. Favorite sports team? Who do you follow?
So I adopted Cincinnati as my professional sports town.
Okay.
Back in 1990 when the Cincinnati Reds won the World Series, beat the Oakland A's and swept them. And it's been hard road ever since. Until this year, with the Bengals going to the Super Bowl.
You're a Bengals fan?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it was an amazing run.
Yeah.
It was disappointment, but I had to remember, I'm like, we're in the Super Bowl. Like, this is crazy. So Cincinnati, anything Cincinnati.
Very cool. What was the nickname your parents had for you when you were young?
Oh, so this one's easy. So my real name is Bernard Henry Bockweg the Eighth.
The eighth?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. So the world now knows that. Thanks.
That is some juicy stuff.
So, which was a problem growing up, specifically when I became of age, so 16 plus, when you're trying to open bank accounts. So my father passed away when I was 15 years old. Of course, he's the seventh, right? So he was VII. I'm VIII.
Right.
So the systems back in the 90s wouldn't take 4 characters.
Oh.
So when I was applying for loans and things like that, it was VII, and they would get like, hold on a second, it says you're deceased. And I'm like,
Oh, God. Oh, no.
I'm like, no, I'm the 8th. It's VIII. I'm the son. Like, yes,
Right.
my father is deceased. So anyway, so my dad, he was Buddy, and he was Big Buddy. I was Little Buddy, but my entire family still to this day calls me Bubby.
Bubby.
Bubby. So
Bubby.
yeah, Bubby.
Okay.
Yep.
Bubby. Awesome. And then finally, what did you want to be when you were 5 years old?
It was easy too. I wanted to be a professional baseball player.
Sure.
Yeah, I thought that was my trajectory and that was my career path, and things happen in your life. You just
Yeah.
things change, especially when you have a catastrophic event when you're in high school.
Sure.
And, anyway, it became something that I'm still passionate. I love baseball to this day. Wish I would put a little more time and energy into it. Maybe it would have panned out differently.
Yeah.
But how's that? Now I'm
Very
here.
cool. All right. Well, thanks for playing with me on that, on those questions.
That was easy, Lisa.
All right. What do we got? Questions. I know Steven's got a question. He's got it written down. Perfect. Have at it.
My first one is, so what does the V stand for?
What do you think it stands for?
Victory.
Victory?
I think it stands for
Yeah.
victory.
It stands for very.
Very.
Yeah. So when we started looking at
Very simple.
software going into industries like distribution manufacturing, we kept coming back to if it's not simple, they're not going to use it. And we kept, when we were building our software, we were thinking about, I'm like, all right, my mom, you can barely use a cell phone, much less, you're sitting there at a computer all day trying to figure out how. We were like, we've got to make it incredibly simple. Everything we do has to have a level of simplicity, and then we coupled that with beauty too, because the platforms that they use today, if you've ever worked in an ERP, man, they're atrocious. So
Yes.
we said, all right, it has to be simple, it has to be beautiful. And so we kept coming back to this very simple concept.
Very simple.
And as you all know, the people that have started a business, your domain choices are going to dictate a lot of that.
That's for sure.
We can either be like, Fukadubu, and you're like, we'll be the ones that really put something in, and we'll be that. And they're like, no, nobody's going to understand that. So
Very simple.
Anyway.
Yeah. Cool.
yeah, very simple.
And you've got a new venture as well that I've only just recently read about, vStudio.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys know about vStudio?
So we just launched it this week. So Alex Reed, who is our Chief Commercial Officer, what we identified, these organizations are just wonderful. These manufacturers and distributors, multi-generational, built amazing, crazy businesses that, we were just in Cincinnati looking at a company. They take gigantic foam blocks and they carve them down into lightweight structures that can be utilized to hang from drop ceilings. And you see them all over the place. Walmart, Target, they're everywhere, and this company makes them, and you're like, wow, like this is crazy. Like what an amazing, and they've been doing it for 40 years. So you see like this passion and this love and this, and it's like, man, they're all so proud of what they've built. But what we saw is they're all independent of each other. And I don't know if it's generational. I don't know if it's just like a competitive thing, but we realized specifically in the tech community, here we're all sitting together, we'll gather as a community and we'll pass ideas around. We didn't see a lot of that outside of the associations for distribution and manufacturing.
Okay.
So we said, you know what? Let's build a community. Let's bring distribution and manufacturing together. Let's find a way to be able to educate the world on why they should be thinking about their businesses and the operations of their business and the importance of the development of people and talent and, the kind of the next wave, the next 50 years.
What's been their receptivity to that?
So we just launched it this week. So
we'll find out.
So give me a month. Our goal, we have but for us, it's fun because we're seeing people light up about it, and we're being able to contact people and bringing them in and interviewing them and giving them an opportunity to provide guidance and knowledge and a better understanding of how they do things so that the world now knows instead of, that big building over there, they make something. Unless you have somebody that works in there, you don't.
Right. And then how do they necessarily attract talent if nobody knows what happens in that building? Right?
And that's really something that is hitting that industry hard right now. So we hope that we can be a catalyst for that. So we're in our new facility, which we were talking about. We are building out an event center in the first floor to be able to connect people, to be able to have programming and speakers from all over the country, hopefully all over the world, and be able to gather people together because, we talked about it. It's all about relationships and connectivity. So if it's about connection, let's make sure that we are about connection.
Cool. All right. What else you got before we wrap it up?
I got a few.
Go ahead.
I also just wanted to say thank you for being here doing this because I know Buddy and I know kind of the scaffolding of that story, but that's just really cool, man, to hear all
Thanks,
about it.
man.
It's inspiring. It's impressive. So,
Thanks. Well, you were a large part of it at the very beginning.
I was very, very tiny.
You were bigger than you think.
I would like to know, what are some of the big challenges you've dealt with in getting Vsimple off the ground? Maybe one or two of the challenges that how did you overcome that, or how are you overcoming that?
The biggest challenge, no question, is just capital. Yeah. Right. It's the this region is not set up very well with a bunch of risk capital. Right. I mean, there's a lot of people willing to make really small bets, but not really many people that are willing to make pretty large bets. So not knowing that coming in, I was super naive, right? And we had the conversations early on. Stephen helped me, helped us really, and he gave us kind of a little roadmap, and, you got to talk to a lot of people, and there's a lot of connectivity that needs to happen. And I'm thinking, well, surely there's like a network, right? You just jump in and you tell them that you're an idea, and I'm going after the industry that I spent 20 years in. I'm an experienced leader and manager. We've got one hell of a co-founding team. Like, we're going to take over the world. Everybody's going to come along with us. And then you realize, like, there's crickets and there's nobody connected. And you have to have hundreds of coffees to get to anyone that's interested in making an investment. So you're like, wow, like this is, I didn't expect it. It was something that took me aback just because I wasn't a part of the community prior to that, the entrepreneurial community. Right. So that was something, in the way that we moved through that was grinding. I mean, you took
those coffees and
then if there was a no, then it was like, can you connect me to somebody that might be a yes, and let's stay connected, and let's figure out, and it's once you start raising money, you really never stop raising money.
True.
That's what I've learned anyways. It's like this continuation.
Yeah.
Momentum and traction make it easier to have conversations, but it's a continual process. I mean, we just closed a round and we're already starting to think about, all right, what's the landscape of the next round look like? So, and I don't know what the rest of the country looks like, Stephen. I have not tried to raise there. We tried to raise with VCs outside of the region, and there was hesitancy. We're going into an old market in an industry. We're first-time founders, all of us. So it became this like, after you get a couple $1 million in revenue, call us. Yeah. And we're like, but I don't need you at a couple million. I can call everybody at that point. But the people that did believe, they believed. Yeah. So the angels that came in, John Neese, John Hollenbach, we had, just amazing people that just stuck their neck out on the line. We have a family out of Ohio, the Bagshaw family. They have, they're angel investors, and they've put 7 figures into our business. And you're like, that's how much they believe. They're not tech people. They actually were KFC people. They own a bunch of Kentucky Fried Chickens, and they happen to be the grandchildren who are Blake Bagshaw, who's a good friend of mine. He's one of the grandchildren. He decided that, they got together and said, hey, you know what? It was granddad's business who became dad's business, and we're good with you guys selling it off. And so they did. So they had that exit at the time that we're starting this business. And it was just, and they were wonderful friends and just amazing human beings. And they were the catalyst. They were the first into Access Point Alliance. They were the first into Vsimple. And they have been just amazing partners. But they don't come from this community. So you're like, wow, so part of our whole charge is we want, how do we, this community piece, right, is such a big deal. Yeah. And we are doing this for such different reasons, right? This is a build wealth so we can give back. This isn't hey, we want a private jet and a couple houses and, see you. Thanks for everything, City of Louisville and New Albany. It's like, no, we want to figure out, we see what's being done in Indianapolis, and I'm envious because it's like, hey, we need a $1 billion exit. Let's do it, Stephen. Me and you. Let's do it. We need.
I'll race it.
Yeah. You're well on your way. But we need that to happen so that we have a catalyst and a spark
Yeah.
to be able to take the risk capital and move it into the community in a much bigger, centralized way.
So you're going to be our exact target? That's what your role is?
I'd like to be 10x exact target.
Okay. You heard it here first.
We have big dreams. Not to
Good.
say that, I'm a realist as well, but there's things that the space that we're moving into. This is not a U.S. thing. This is a global thing. These aren't businesses that just have problems here. The industry that we're targeting is
Yeah.
enormous. So we want to change the industry, and by changing the industry means adopting us as their operating platform, and through that, hopefully, we can do it.
All right. We'll wrap it up at this point, and thank you so much. I really appreciate
Lisa,
you
thanks.
sharing your whole entrepreneurial story with us and our group, and we've got it now forever captured, which is even more amazing. Thank you, Austin, for doing that. I appreciate that. Next Startup Grind is Wednesday, March 16th. Will we be back here at Hopo Labs? Awesome. We'll be here. And Austin's going to sit down and chat with Chris Wiedmar with Party Horses. So
Cool.
newest startup on the scene that's just, they are very cool. Just the whole world. They kind of turned the whole...
I thought he was doing
No, yeah.
He's put that on pause for this. So you got to come back next month so you can hear that story, right? And again, we want to thank Amplify and Render, our presenting sponsors, and of course our partner sponsors, Focus, Strategex, Goods and Clothing Company, and Hopeful, where we are right here. So
Love it.
thank you guys so much.
Thanks for
Buddy will
having
be
me.
here if you've got more questions. Appreciate it.